Hello, I'm Braden McCurdy.
And I'm Megan McCurdy-Needens. This is our new Fireside Chant, which is a video series that we put on here for McCurdy Auction to help educate you guys on maybe the auction process and if this is the right process for you or something that you want to learn more about how auctions work.
You know, this first one, we're here to answer some questions about what works for auction. You know, what is a good fit? We get it every day where people contact us and they want to know what's the right fit for auction. Is my property a good fit? What's the benefit of auction? And so we're here to visit a little bit today about that. At any point, always contact us. We'd be happy to individually meet with you and visit about your particular property. But probably one of the things that we get the most is, what's my property worth? We hear that time and again. People want to know what that property is worth. And at any point, we're happy to come out and meet with you, or you can actually search right there on the website, and you can search at mccurdyauction.com and see all of the sold properties by zip code. So if you want to look and see what some of your other properties have brought or in your immediate area, we make that available right there on the website. And so people ask us a lot of times if it's a unique property and there's not very many comps that are like kind to it. People ask all the time, how does this property, what's it worth? And so that's what we're there to do, is help counsel and visit with you and share what our perspective is and what we think how that property would perform.
So just like that, that's one of the first questions maybe, or somebody that's attracted to auction is, what's the value? And so as Braden hit, maybe a unique property that maybe a home on 20 acres or has a pond or pool or outbuildings or barns to where there's not another property just like it that you can pull a lot of comparables. We see a lot of people choosing auction because it's unique. And even if you said, okay, I'm going to have 20 different realtors come out here to give me their opinion, you might hear a wide variety of what they think that property is worth. Sometimes that's a great opportunity to have an auction, because then, as you know, in negotiations, you sometimes hear that you don't want to be the first one to throw a number. Well, when you put a property on the market, you're putting a price tag out there. When you have a property that might have a big fluctuation in what people think the value is, you put it out there as an auction without a price tag, we get all the registered bidders, we get all of the traffic, get all the buyers to one place one time, and we let them compete for it and see which one of those buyers is willing to pay the most. So that's a great time, Braden, to have an auction, is when it's hard to put a value on. You just don't know. There's not another one exactly like it.
And Megan, another thing too, right now, specifically given the current real estate market, the market's strong. The statistics, the numbers prove that it is very, very favorable for sellers in the market. And so sometimes sellers contact us and say, I heard about my neighbor's house selling in 12 hours. And there's always that question in the back of your mind, could I have left money on the table? And so that's one of the nice things about maximizing competition with the auction, is it, one, provides a level playing field for all those buyers to participate. And it's more of a bid collection process now, with it being an online auction and software generated or software run, where everybody's bidding on the website versus out at a live auction like we did our entire lifetime. And so it's changed. Our business has changed quite a bit, but it really allows for the maximum competition because it gives everybody that opportunity to participate.
That's exactly the second point of probably why we see people choosing auction, is the competitive element. Auction is, that's truly a competition. That's what an auction is. And so right now, because the market has been so strong, finding a buyer is not the problem. You can put your house on the market and it's going to sell. There's buyers out there. But sometimes it's bringing all those buyers into the same level playing field, making them compete for it. And so that is a huge, huge reason we're seeing people choose auction right now, is because they know there's competition, and so they want to use that competition. They want to maximize the competition that's in the marketplace right now to basically make sure that you get the highest sales price for it. So I'd say that's a second point. The third point is, the next thing sometimes we hear is that we do sometimes do a lot of maybe estate work, or we do work that maybe a seller isn't willing or doesn't want to have to go through some of those processes that you experience on the traditional market. So on the traditional market, what we customarily see, and we do both, so we understand both transactions, but you see a contract that's contingent upon inspections and contingent upon financing and contingent upon appraisals, and all of those things sometimes can be burdensome to get to the closing table. So there's a lot of things that sometimes if you get through the inspection period, then all of a sudden you have a several page document that's all these things that this buyer wants you to prepare. And so
we see it all the time, Megan, where sellers, they just say, I want to sell my house. And the challenges of almost basically becoming a general contractor to fix that house up. and get it ready so that it can work through the traditional sales process. There's a lot of sellers that have great homes, great condition. Many of them are all paid for, free and clear properties. They're the opposite of any financial distress, which is the majority of our auctions. They're all non-distress and, premier, excellent families that we get to work for here in the community. But what we're finding is that that's a challenge on the open market. The big challenge is getting through those inspections. In fact, we have a realtor cooperative program within our company, and every day realtors will contact us and say, hey, I've got a listing, or I think this might be a good fit for auction. And one of the realtors I was visiting with, a excellent, well-known realtor here in town the other day, we have an auction that we were working on together. And she said, Braden, probably the most contentious part about a traditional real estate sales process is that inspection phase and getting through the inspectors and the contractors and the repairs that are necessary in order to maybe have that property ready to go for a loan or a buyer that's ready to move right in. And so that as-is element, I think, is really important because you can sell it. You can still achieve very, very strong success rate price-wise with the auction route.
So you're right, Braden. It's not just about inspection sometimes, but the terms of auction, right now, one thing that we've seen be important is it's not contingent upon an appraisal. So in today's market, it's not uncommon for us to hear realtors saying, I had 10 offers and 5 of them were above asking price, and that's great. But when it's contingent upon an appraisal, it has to appraise for that much, or you sometimes find yourself renegotiating halfway through your contract period because that appraisal. And so auction is also not contingent upon appraisal, which again, in a market like we're experiencing right now, can be a very important term. So that's kind of, again, one thing, the cash, the as is, the close in 30 days, that has been for years and years one of the things that we've seen attract buyers. Another thing though, or sellers, you're right.
We like
actually
buyers
it
too.
attracts buyers
Come
too,
on down.
because then there's certainty. But I'd say one of the last key points I'd like to hit on would be the timing and the certainty that comes with setting an auction date. If you put your property on the traditional market, which obviously can work, and right now you hear that it sells in a day, but you don't know if it's going to sell in a day or a week or a month or a year. And so sometimes that can be very difficult to plan their lives and their move and their changes when they don't know exactly what day it's going to happen.
Yes, Megan. In fact, yesterday, literally, we had a online auction concluding at about 2:00, and the husband was sitting at my desk watching the online auction conclude, and me and the seller's wife, and the realtor actually from Wichita here, they're down in Texas making the commitments for the home that they need to be in by a certain date and time. And so here we are picking the date that they sell their home so that they can make their obligations and make their needs happen on the other end. And so that certainty of picking when you sell is very valuable to folks.
And it's not just that. So sometimes it's not just the certainty of the timeline for you, because that's certainly beneficial, but it's the certainty of expenses. Because sometimes, I mean, any homeowner, if you're selling a personal home, whether or not you have a mortgage or not, you do have taxes and insurance and utilities. And so every month that your home is sitting on the market or not sold, you have expenses. Or if you do have a payment and principal and interest is adding up, or if you get into commercial properties or land or anything like that, there can be a fair amount of expenses that go with holding costs, to where when you can control that timeline and you can set the date, and then you know, okay, here's my auction day, within 30 days I have a closing, and then from there you know how to make those steps and how to make those commitments for your future based upon the timeline that you got to choose.
We had a transaction, it's been 10 plus years ago now, but I remember it. I remember this vividly. I was sitting at closing on this real estate transaction, and the owner was a finance individual in the oil and gas industry. And he slid a piece of paper across the table to me, and I look at it and I say, "What's this?" And it says $162,000 and some odd dollars. And specifically, what he was highlighting, because he had it down on a spreadsheet, was the amount of holding costs that he incurred. This was a large home down in Flint Hill subdivision, and he actually had calculated, while he was 884 days on the market. I still remember the numbers. He had calculated to the penny how much he incurred in holding costs waiting for that home to sell. And although the market is substantially stronger in today's market, we're still seeing many sellers value and appreciate the ability to control that holding cost and move that property on a timeline that meets their goals and expectations and their needs.
That's one thing we're seeing right now. We keep talking about the current market because obviously, I mean, if you've been around, you've heard the market has just been crazy and the market's been strong and multiple offers. And that's a great thing. But it's at the same time, sometimes it's hard to adjust with. And so what we're seeing is Braden was talking about the control of, yes, a property might go under contract in a day or two, but it's full of contingencies and you're hoping to get to the closing table, to where an auction maybe it's a 2-week timeline. And so those buyers have 2 weeks to really sleep on it and digest it and not just make an offer within the first hour they're showing. And then maybe later use those contingencies to get back out of the deal, to where it is a little bit more of a controlled timeline, to where sellers are not just bombarded with 100%, 24 hours back to back to back showings, to where it spreads it out a little bit over 2 weeks. And then it gives those buyers time to truly do their homework and assess the neighborhood or assess the features of the home and make sure that's what they want before they commit into this contract that is a cash as is contract. And then again, we're seeing less of those contracts then default and fall apart, and because that's what happens with contingencies sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes those contingencies sellers and buyers just can't come together on, and then the property goes back on the market. And so we're seeing a lot less of those transactions not coming to the closing table at auction, because again, it's given them enough time to truly understand what they're bidding on and what they're purchasing and know that they're making a good, solid decision.
And Megan, in that due diligence phase, that couple weeks when we're marketing the property, our team does everything we can to eliminate all the uncertainties associated with that transaction. We assemble property information packets, and in those property information packets, they're as thorough and as complete as we can get. Everything from aerials and flood maps and zoning, and if there's property inspections and well forms and average utilities and the seller's disclosures. And we work on the front end to have all that done before the purchasing decision is made. Whereas on the back end, on the traditional market, oftentimes that's after you've contracted. And so by having that done on the front end, it makes that buyer realize up front what they're actually buying. And instead of waiting 2 weeks to find an inspector, get it inspected, and then learn about the condition, find out up front. And so that way, when you make that purchasing decision, you know everything there is to know about that property.
Exactly, and I'm sure we'll do a video at some point for you guys about buying at auction, because I think that sometimes, from a seller's perspective, you hear the cash as is. From a buyer's perspective, that's scary, but the reality is most of the auction buyers aren't actually paying cash. They are obtaining some sort of financing, and they do have time to look it over ahead of time, and they do have time to do inspections if they desire. What the auction does is just eliminate those contingencies for that, and so there is a difference. And so I'm sure, like I said, we'll do a buyer video at some point, and we'll explain very in depth, but we have a lot of buyers who do get loans.
And Megan, we're excited. This is a monthly series that we're going to begin, and so we're here to answer any questions you may have. So if you have questions, message us. Hit us on all the social media channels. This will be distributed out through those channels, and so let us know if you have questions or what you'd like to hear from us. Give us that feedback. We're here to answer any questions for you.
Absolutely. So thank you for watching our first episode of Fireside Chant. Our marketing department did that. If you don't know, chant, an auctioneer, you call the chant. That's your bid calling. So I like what they did there with the words. So again, we just appreciate you guys watching. Like Braden said, if you ever have questions about us or our process, that's what we're here for. We're happy to answer questions. And potentially, if you think you have a property that might be a good fit for auction, and call us. We're happy to come out and look at it and just visit with you and see if it is a good option for you. So ladies and gentlemen, have a great day. Again, I'm Megan McCurdy-Needens.
And I'm Braden. Have a good day.